Welcome back to the Outlaw Ranch. Yesterday I left off a little premature. I need to get rid of this tube here. I need to cut it out. It's a little short. That's problem one. And I am just not a good enough welder to be able to fill in that gap. The gap is actually tighter up here at the top than it is on the bottom. But that's a good gap right there. There is just too much of a gap. That's problem one. Problem two is that it's a little low. And I don't know what happened here. A friend of mine was telling me that this tube work does have a little bit of a variance as far as being straight and that kind of thing. He actually told me exactly what that variance was, and now I can't remember. All I remember is that there is just a little bit of a variance. That's okay. We're going to get that one cut out and worked in a little better. Kind of a funny little unique story. A friend of mine was building a shed, a teammate. When you're on a team like I am, you're not really friends. You're more like family. You're brothers. Well, he needed a shed built, so 100 years ago, that's something I used to do, was build houses and stuff. And in the area that we lived in, the houses we built were multi-million-dollar houses, and it would take us over a year from start to finish. There was only a couple of us, framing, and I worked for a general contractor, so we did everything. Well, long story short, one of my favorite sayings is that I'm not building a piano. So nothing has to be perfect. And that's true. This isn't a piano. And my friends my brothers there, they give me a hard time about it. The thing that gets me is, while this is not a piano and it doesn't need to be perfect, I believe I'm capable of doing better work. And if I'm capable of doing better work for whatever reason in my little psyche, I feel the need to prove it to myself, to do better work. So that's what this is about. We're going to do better work. I'm capable of doing better. I'm capable of making that a tighter fit. And I am capable of making that more flush with the top here. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to get that last tube there cut out. We're going to get it brought up so that it is tight with the table legs there. Whew. Yeah, it's a lot of work. We're going to get this done, folks, so stand by. Okay, folks, after some grinding, I think this will be ready to go. I need to grind off what's left of those welds here. You can see they're little remnants there, but we did get this tube cut out, and so the next step will be to grind this off so it's nice and flush, and we're trying to make it as much like nothing was there as possible. So even these little speckles there, little welding splatter, we'll try and get those off as well. Just try and make this, you can see there's a few there, try and make it as perfect as we can. So we're going to cut this new tube. First thing I'll do is I'll measure this old tube and just confirm that it was too short. Then, since I cut this tube here at exactly 42.5, I'm going to confirm with that tube to make sure that it is 42.5 as well. And we'll just make this one exactly the same. Then we'll do the same trick that we did before, eyeballing down this to make sure that it is indeed arrow straight all the way to the end there. So stand by, folks. We got some more work to do. Okay, folks, I've got these, what were the old welds, ground off, and the little spatter and everything is cleaned up on both sides. This is actually a little dip that I must have cut into that metal a little bit when I was removing this piece. This piece right here is the one that we just took out. And we know from the other pieces that it's supposed to be 42.5 inches. So if I take my tape measure, hook it to that end, and we come down here, you can definitely see we're about 42 and 5/16, 42 and 3/8. So we are an eighth short. That's why the table was still straight, because we had a little bit of a gap there, but the gap was too big for my beginning welding abilities to fill. So next up, cut a new piece. Let's get it exactly 42.5, and we'll get it burned in. Okay folks, this is the new piece we've cut. We haven't beveled the edges or anything yet. We come down here and you can see that is exactly 42.5. So this should be our new piece. We'll go test fit it just to make sure, and then we'll get to beveling these edges and fitting it into place. Hard part, I think, is going to be figuring out how to hold this thing in place while I'm tacking it, but we'll work into that here in just a minute. Stand by, folks. Okay folks, as you can see, I've got this new piece beveled and tacked in here. It is tight. One of the issues I was running into is these magnets that I have to keep things square. They're not very powerful, and so when I was putting them up underneath here to try and keep this stuff nice and square and hold this tube into place, it wasn't enough. So what I did was I grabbed one of my ratchet straps here and kind of looped it around this and over here to kind of squeeze it together to add some pressure to hold that tube in place. If you'll remember, we cut that tube exactly 22.5, and I showed you guys that. So we knew that it was the same dimension as this middle tube and that far tube over there. So I was fairly confident that that was going to keep everything nice and straight. And if we come down here, you guys are going to experience this here with me, and we look down that edge, that is arrow straight. And I think it's going to be the same on this side as well. Let's eyeball down that. The three legs, yep, everything is straight. So the next thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut those angled braces at 45-degree angles, and I'm going to come off of these legs, kind of towards the bottom here, and come up into the center section. And the same thing, center section here, down to this leg. And if I remember right, I think I need 14 of them. So I've got a couple of scraps laying around here, that 38.5-inch piece there, and then that tube that I just cut out over there by the cords behind the tire there. So I've got a couple of pieces here. We'll cut some scraps. We'll check it out, see how well it's going to look before we get around to tacking them all in. But I think that's the next step. That should help keep this stuff in place and keep it from warping and bending and tweaking and stuff. I'm not sure. This one here, no, I guess that is pretty good. That one's pretty good too. It's a little deceiving because of that bevel that goes down in there, but it does feel good. That one's great. This one actually feels like this tube might be a little high. Well, let's get a straight edge here and let's double check that. So this is just a speed square. And we'll stick it on here. Nope. That is perfectly flat. Okay. Well, I think everything is as straight and as flat as I can make it. So I'm going to cut those angled braces, and we'll see you guys back in just a few. Okay, folks, we've got a good start here on our 45-degree angle braces here. These are the braces that'll go from the legs up to the base of the frame, and that's in an attempt to keep these legs straight as we weld them. I'm marking them all at 21 inches. Now that seems kind of random. What it is, I had to measure, we knew that this was 42 and a half. And if we do it at a 45, that would be 22 and a quarter. But I wanted a little gap. So I started cutting them all at 21. Or I was cutting them all at 22 and a half. And then I decided that, remember that scrap piece I had over here? Well, that angled piece there is all that's left. So I ended up shortening it to 21 just to make better use of some of my scraps that I had. It's probably cheap and everything. And they won't come, to the center point here. They'll be back quite a ways. Not sure if that was smart or not, but it was the best use of my scrap material I had. And any kind of triangulation that we have on these legs should ensure less bending, tweaking, warping, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to keep cutting these pieces. I think I needed 14 of them. Looks like I've only got 5 here, and I'm working on number 6 here. So I think for sure we're going to end up using what's left of this scrap. But we'll find out more in here in just a minute. So stand by, folks. We're still doing some work. Okay, folks, I thought I would let you in on what I think is a little secret to getting everything as equal as everything else. And what I've done here is this bottom piece is my original piece that I cut. So after I mark my pieces and I cut them, sometimes I end up cutting them just a little long, especially if this piece here is a full stick, because it is very difficult to get this mark exactly in line with your blade. And so I end up cutting them just a hair long sometimes. And when you do, you end up with these really thin, I don't know if it'll even focus on that, pieces of metal here. You can see just how thin that is. And that's because I ended up cutting it twice. I ended up cutting it just a hair long, just due to the weight of moving this big piece. Now, as a second check, what I do is once I get my piece cut, is I line it up with the top here. As you can see, it is lined up, and it should be lined up on the bottom. Same thing on this end, lined up on the top. And when you look at that cut, it almost looks like it's one piece here, even though that is 2 separate pieces there. And that is kind of a confirmation that the new piece I just cut is exact as the first piece I cut. And I've done that with all of these. Unfortunately, these 2 pieces here ended up the slightest amount short. Not that I can't use them, I can. But again, if you have the ability to do better, I think you owe it to yourself to try. And we're talking maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so. Let's we'll go ahead and take a second guess at this, or second look at this rather. So I'm going to line this up as close as I can with the top here. There's that one. And we're going to line the top up here. And it's pretty close. Maybe that was a bad example. I don't know. It's pretty close. Last time I checked it, it was off a little bit. That does look pretty good. I guess we can use that one. I know I had one in here. Maybe it was that one. That was just a hair short. It's okay. I can do better. And I'm going to keep trying to do my best work that I can, hoping to give you guys some tips and tricks along the way. So stand by. We got a few more to cut and we'll be done. Okay, folks, we've done an awful lot of cutting in the last couple of days. That's all from the saw. And I have all of these pieces cut. There was one odd thing, and I thought I would try it. So there was this piece that was just a hair too short. And I had another 45-degree angle cut that was plumb on the other end. So I thought, well, what better way than to practice my welding than putting those two together. I did. It's straight. It's not pretty. I did grind off the welds just to make sure that I kind of got all the penetration. Here you can see I didn't quite fill in the bevel that I had cut. It's still hot. That side looks better. That side, again, you can see I didn't quite get all the bevel, but I'm going to use it, and I think I'm going to use it here in the center where it goes from the center of the table to the center leg. That way it won't be seen, you know, it doesn't look right, but it is straight and it is welded together, so I'm going to use it. One more thing that I have that is bothering me is right here. This tube happens to be just a little low from that tube. I thought about leaving it, I really did. If I put this, I guess that's not long enough. If I put a straight edge on there, you can see that this piece is low. In fact, you can see it right there. It's just a hair low, and it is going to bother me. So I'm going to cut these couple of tacks. There's one here, there's one up underneath. And I'm going to move that tube up, and then I'm going to tack it back in place. It's probably not that big of a deal, but I do want it better. The rest of these, I think, are well, I'm going to say they're perfect. I put a straight edge on all of these pieces, and everything else looks perfect except that one. So we're going to cut that loose, and we're going to tack it back in place. I don't know how much more I'm going to get done. I don't know if I'm going to get these tacked in place. I would like to get all those edges beveled, and that's going to take a great deal of time. So we're going to get that cut, we'll get it moved in place, and I'll show you guys the aftermath, and we'll see what happens. All right, folks, I've got this piece cut off, and I have it now nice and flush with the leg. Every joint is now flush and plumb and as level as I know how to make it for now. I have all of my bracing here. It is all cut. It's all ready to go. The only thing is, I think I can really only bevel this corner, and really what would have to happen is that corner would have to be just squared off so that the weld has a place to go. I don't think I need to bevel these edges because where it welds in, we already have a nice radius there. I might do a slight bevel there, but not much. This bottom piece here, I don't know how I would bevel that. So it might just stay like it is. Not real sure what to do there. I'll think about it some more. But this table, the framework now is, until I get those braces in, it is as far as I can take it for now. Everything's been fixed and repaired. Everything's nice and flush. Looks good. The wheels all lock. It is straight. So this is done probably for the day. I appreciate you all watching and sticking with me through these slow projects. I know I'm really slow. It is just me. I don't have anybody else. So thank you for bearing with me. Also, we talked earlier about, support from family, friends, how my teammates end up becoming more like brothers. I can't forget to thank my real family as they stand behind me and let me learn how to do all this stuff and spend the money that I do spend. I'm very appreciative of them, and I hope you all appreciate your families as well. If you guys ever get into this, remember it just takes a lot of support. That'll be it for the day. I appreciate y'all watching. Again, like, share, comment, subscribe. All of those things help an immense amount. And I appreciate y'all watching. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you later. Bye.